Welcome back to Sci-Fi Book Trek. Today we'll be doing spoilers for Halo Fall of Reach.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, let's start with neutral nitpicking.
Neutral nitpicking.
Okay.
Right. One of the first things that appears in the narrative is that Halsey and Keyes are basically both on a diplomatic shuttle.
Yeah.
This diplomatic shuttle is supposed to have a crew of 40, presumably to run all of the equipment, and there's two of them.
And an AI.
And an AI, even so, but like both of them are asleep. And that in itself has nitpicking aspects that I wanted to bring up. But
on most, even if there was 40 crew, I got the impression that they would all be asleep for the jump. Like the travelling time. And it's the AI monitoring.
perhaps
Doing all the work. And because there's only two of them, the AI can easily manage everything.
But that in itself brings up a weird question, at least for me. They have FTL, and I've read some of the other books in this series. They have FTL, but they still have to go into essentially cryo sleep. So the FTL is not improving travel times to such an extent where it's Star Trek instantaneous. Well, not even instantaneous, because
just a few weeks instead of, months.
Yes. But that gets abandoned fairly quickly in the later books because it's just not practical, especially when you've got some of the characters who end up flying for weeks. As you say, there's some characters end up flying for weeks to go to distant star systems. They don't have access to the cryosleep. But putting someone into cryosleep for weeks, it's going to do a number on their muscle. It's going to do a number on their muscle density. I mean, just having them in 0G is not practical. And human tech doesn't have artificial gravity.
You say that, but I think, well, the bigger problem for me is with the book, there seems to be a mixture of hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi. And it doesn't always work right. One thing being gravity.
Yeah.
Because they do mention, spinning parts of a ship with Earth-like gravity and stuff like that. Or Keyes on the ship seems to walk about.
Yeah.
He mentions, feeling sick going past the gravity part. But in all other respects, he seems like he's walking.
Yeah.
Now, I think the author wrote it like hard sci-fi. But then the people of the game went, we've got to have the characters walking around.
Yes.
On the ship. Because for practicality reasons. Well,
yeah.
And I think he's more of a mindset of a hard sci-fi writer. Like, because when...
Well,
one of the interesting set pieces is with Keyes. How he defeats the Covenant.
Yeah, with the
how he moves out of the way and stuff like that, and how all the ships are propelled, using Newtonian physics.
Yes, because
they can turn, fire the engines, then turn around with the thrusters, still going in
the same direction,
and
the emergency blast points where it's got the mix, the chemical mixes on specific hard points of the ship. Yes,
all that. It seems very hard sci-fi, and it's doing what, in theory, everything's supposed to do.
And when Keyes fires a missile that disappears in the opposite direction, but because they were still moving,
and also
it
the orbit
didn't
and
defeat
stuff.
the So and he does all these calculations pretty much in his head.
Yeah.
I mean, I say Keyes being the more human out of the characters. The fact that he can do that, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I know the likes of Armstrong and Aldrin, they were all doing
And it
astrogation
does
in their
mention
heads.
he is a teacher. Because he was teaching tactics at
I got a thing about that though.
right.
I mean, it's Admiral, what's his name? Admiral Stanforth? Yeah, Admiral Stanforth. He does call him the schoolmaster.
Yeah.
But Keyes takes that as a thing of like a rebuke.
Yeah.
He takes that as a rebuke because Keyes is under the impression that he thinks that a lot of the Admiralty would rather him be teaching a classroom rather than flying a ship. But Stanforth is one of the people that has to sign off on Hawkes's mission originally. So Stanforth presumably knows that Keyes was on the mission to gather all the kids. And it was one of those things that, is that a reference or is that a...
No, the way I read it was, he was an actual teacher and like he was training the captains of the military. And because they've taken so many losses, he's been promoted up to a captain to actually command the ship. And everyone else is a bit snooty about him. He's a school teacher. He doesn't really know.
Yeah.
He knows theory, but he hasn't been in,
I just thought the school teacher thing was because he essentially gathered all the kids for the Spartan project, and because Stanforth knows about it, it was that sort of, oh, the schoolmaster.
But yeah, there's a point where I believe it's Halsey tells someone, I think it's Mendez, Chief Mendez.
Yeah, Chief Mendez is.
He was talking to, and she was saying, I want to give a briefing to all the Spartans on the London.
Yeah.
At 0600 hours. Next chapter comes, and the ship is called the Pioneer. So I'm thinking the London was his penciled in name, the author's penciled in name, and he was just naming it after, like, I don't know, capital cities or something.
Yeah.
And then when he went to him, they said, no, use this name, Pioneer. He changed it, but he forgot from the page before.
That is...
I mean, that might have been corrected in later publications of the book, but it was in mind, so.
But, yeah, and that, really and truly, that's one of the first real gaffes that I think I've seen.
But, like, I mean, it's just a nice insight into, like, writers' ideas.
I'm not
like
disputing that. It's just,
yeah.
I think it's one of the first major gaffes that I've seen where there's been something that has specifically been. It's. I
noticed it more because it was like.
Yeah,
page
literally
page,
opposite
like,
page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one more slight nitpick.
Okay.
The career records they call CSV, standing for Career Service Vita. Now, one, he's an American author. Would you really call it Vita? Because, I mean, for our American listeners, I think some parts of America still use it, but I'm not sure. What you call a resume, we call a CV, a curriculum vitae.
Curriculum vitae.
Because we have to use Latin. But anyway, that's where Vita comes from.
Vitae.
But my nitpick is normally in things like that, everything is Latinized or in Latin, or everything's in one language.
If you're going to use curriculum vitae or vita, it's all because curriculum is.
If you can use vitae, you use like I can't see why everything else is in English and that word's in Latin. That was my only nitpick, and like, you know, I'm sure it sounds sort of better, I guess. And it's different, so.
And they're all fascists.
Because they use Latin?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
You're now completely thrown out. It's like, what?
No,
where are you going? Where are you going with this?
I mean, like, it's military sci-fi, so of course it's always got a whiff of fascism because that's military sci-fi. But anyway, go on to the themes.
Okay, what do you think the themes are?
Honestly, I don't think it has one. It's more of a hodgepodge of different things. It's more about getting Master Chief and the Beloved Autumn to a certain point, and then just writing a nice little piece.
A pure fiction outing.
Yeah, I would not say there's any themes or anything. No overarching themes or anything. I mean, things are touched on, but they're normally like picked up, then thrown away and moved on to something else. There's no actual theme. But what would you say?
This is the thing. When I touched on it, I thought maybe good versus evil. But there's the problem, is that the longer that you read it, the more muddy that becomes.
Yeah, I never got that, but yeah.
See, the game's very much a good versus evil. You're fighting for the survival of the human race, and it's against an alien race that wants to exterminate us simply for the fact of exterminating us. You get into this, and I'm sorry, but the UNSC, to me, it came off like Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers. Because ethically, they are extremely, there's some really fascist overtones coming into this. I mean, for a start, the entire Spartan 2 program starts as a thing for putting down rebellions.
Yes.
Well, that's what, straight away, it's like...
But it's like at the fringes of the Empire.
Okay. But even so, they've suddenly resorted to, oh yeah, I know exactly the best way that we're going to be able to put down the rebellions on the fringes of the Empire. We'll draft child soldiers and genetically experiment on them. And not just that, it's like, we're drafting child soldiers, we're going to steal them out from under their families and leave the families with clones that will die off extremely quickly because of...
Well, that's the thing, it doesn't really tell you that the clones are going to die off really quickly. It just says, they replaced them with clones. It's like, well, why can't you just use clones then?
Well,
but you think, all right, there's got to be something wrong with the clones.
Yeah. The flash cloning process that they use is supposed to be full of problems, so the clones end up essentially dying of cancers or tumours.
But that's the thing, it never fully tells you that in the book.
Not in this book.
So when it brings up, like, oh, is Halsey evil? Is she a monster, or has she done the right thing? You can't really make a judgment. Because it's like, well, are the clones okay.
Look,
You know.
perhaps not in this book, but
Oh, yes,
it is a
Don't get me
factor
wrong.
of the law.
Kidnapping kids and just replacing them with, you know, another child that looks similar is, you know, a bad thing. But, you know, look, from like changeling law.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'll grant you this, they at least try to humanise Halsey a little bit by saying, by the AI saying, if you didn't do it, then they'd just appoint someone with less scruples who would do it anyway. So you can at least protect these children. And it's like...
But that feels like the lie you tell yourself to...
Well, exactly. I'm pretty sure...
At night.
But I'm pretty sure that then is followed up with half of them fucking dying.
Yeah.
And to touch on what we were talking about earlier, like with John 117, he starts off as basically a brash little 6-year-old, I think. I can't remember how old he is,
I think
but
he's 6.
He's pretty young. And he starts off as like a brash kid, and they literally put him through boot camp. They break him down. They completely rewrite all of his beliefs. They completely rewrite all of his systems of thinking to turn him into the perfect soldier.
Yeah, but he's boot camp.
I'm not disputing that, but you're putting kids through boot camp.
Oh, yes.
They've broken John down to essentially believe in the brainwashing. He is literally a brainwashed child soldier.
He does feel stunted growth. He's there to follow orders, whatever orders are, and that's what makes him happy.
Yes.
To follow orders.
And that is a terrifying thought. But once he's basically ordered, get in the ring.
The officer orders him to get into the ring and sort it out, so he does.
Like a robot. And the fact that he then takes these guys apart and has no qualms.
But he doesn't know killing is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, because why would you train a soldier?
No dispute. No dispute.
Killing is wrong.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that they make him into the perfect soldier. Yeah. That was the aim. But the fact that they did it to a kid. Now, my point is
but
that
who's better? Like, you know, he hasn't developed, you know, work out who he is and other sort of emotional things, or like work out, oh well, what an adult tells me might not necessarily be the truth.
But that's
adults like if you're going to train a soldier, a perfect soldier, you want them at that point where they believe everything they're told, everything they're ordered to do. They believe.
I'm not
That's
disputing.
What you want.
I'm not.
As soon as they start questioning,
but I'm not disputing the end result.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that as time goes on, John starts to make those decisions to when he's testing the Mjolnir, the full Mjolnir armor with Cortana, and he's essentially given permission to murder the guys that attack him. But he then makes a decision, no, I'm not going to do that because they're fellow soldiers.
Yeah. But to be fair, those soldiers have also been ordered to kill him.
Yes. What I'm saying is
it's not like
John has made that determination, and there's no point at which he's gone from the perfect killing machine to these are fellow soldiers.
No,
it feels like there's a step missing there.
I think the point in the book where he loses, you know, half the team through the genetic
manipulation.
The genetic enhancement that goes well. That goes as well as could be expected. And then his talk with Mendes. And like, you know, it's not bad to sacrifice a soldier, but it's bad to waste a soldier.
I mean, that...
It's like, I think that was his mentality in that moment. Of like, these are soldiers and they can still be useful. If I kill them, then that's a waste. But I just have to put them out of action. And then they can get a medical team in here, and then he can go back to fighting the Covenant.
Okay, but
that's the logic I thought he was working on.
Which is fair enough, but the scene where he basically kills the shock troopers in the gym is directly following that talk with Mendes.
I think, one, because he hasn't fully developed the idea yet. It's still ticking over. And also, he goes on to have a talk with Mendes after that as well.
Perhaps.
And that is what... Because it feels like you're only getting the cherry-picked highlights of Master Chief's life.
But in that, to me, at least, it felt like there were some developmental steps where he's gone from killing machine to I'm not going to kill everything just because I've got permission.
But in that time, like 6 years has passed.
I know. What I'm saying is that it's almost like a developmental step that I felt was missing for that character, especially considering how much time they spend characterizing him.
I don't know. For me, I felt it was short, yes, and like the minimum amount, but it was enough for me. But anyway, we were talking about themes.
I mean, started talking about characters at which point, but yeah, like I say, the UNSC does not feel like a very nice place. That's what came across to me.
One, I would agree. However, I would add, one, it's a military organisation, and two, through half of it, it is at war, and at war for the survival of the whole human race.
No, I can't agree with that because the Covenant doesn't come in until well into the Spartans program. Spartans were developed for putting down rebellions.
For the Spartans, yes.
For them to have immediately gone for, well, not immediately gone for, but the idea that the situation is so bad that they've gone, I know what this needs. It needs child soldiers that have been genetically enhanced to act as a pinpoint strike team.
Well, I think also it is to save her previous project, Milner. And because she found out no one can operate these suits, these armour. So she needs to design someone who can operate this armour.
But again...
Because otherwise her funding is cooked.
But again...
So that's also... Yes, don't get me wrong. Ethics are like not playing a part. But...
We built this suit of armour and no one can use it. I know. Child soldiers.
Well, it's no. Oh, they have to be genetically engineered. Oh, well, then we need them younger. Oh, but we also need them, a physical specimen, which is good. Right, so we need to pick a young person who's physically fit. All right.
But that was...
Now we have to train them up to a level.
But that was
because they have to be physically fit enough to do this.
Yeah. But that
so
was
we need to kidnap 6-year-olds and then train them and then do this. So it all feels like it's a process.
But at no point someone went, "You're kidnapping fucking 6-year-olds? What? Who came up with this plan?"
But no. yes, but that could add to your idea that no one said that because this is like, oh yeah, okay. This seems like a useful.
Well, here's the other thing: the way that they identify these kids is through I think it was a mandated genetic screening, right? That all of the colonists, all of these colonists had to have so that they could go through, screen the kids for genetic markers, predisposition for different things. And it's the type of thing that there's a certain groups all over the world that will immediately go, government mandated DNA tests. Yeah, I know exactly where this is going.
But you've also got to think that research has probably gone on to save kids' lives. Like, oh, we've found out you've got the genetic markers for this. if we start treating you now, that'll never happen.
Mm.
And like all the benefits that has come from. I mean, it might be originally that was the original intent of it, and Halsey's just using that data, and you're just going, "Oh, Halsey's evil, so therefore everything she's pulled from is evil."
She just comes off a little bit Dr. Mengele to me.
But also, Cortana.
There's another.
Who. He's probably my favourite character. Because she. One, she's a thief. But two, she humanises Master Chief in a way nothing else does.
It's creepy.
Like, yes, but she humanises him.
Cortana is an AI clone of Dr. Halsey.
Yeah,
created
roughly,
from
yes.
her brain matter that was flash cloned.
Yes.
It weirded me out a little bit that Cortana is clearly supposed to be a copy of Halsey in everything, but I mean, even her ethics are questionable. That's neither here nor there. But she's cloned from Halsey's brain, and it seems to suggest that she's got a deeper interest in John.
John does not seem like a sexual being whatsoever, especially after the genetic experiments, and it also says like it nullifies their reproduction and stuff and sex drive and stuff.
Yes.
So John feels like he's a eunuch, essentially. So I don't know, and for this book, I go it as at most it's like motherly love.
I don't know. It's for this book. I'll grant you that it's more of a paternal feeling, perhaps, but there's still the moment where Cortana's looking John up and down on a AI thing. She's specifically said that I want this one. She's looking at her eyes and saying,
because she knows it's Halsey's favourite.
But is she trying to get a rise out of Halsey in that regard? Or is it because she has that inclination from being a clone of Halsey's brain? And that's kind of where
No, I did like how he does mention that he's sort of a favourite because he's lucky.
That's another thing. The fact that he does seem like a bit of a Gary Stu.
I mean, he does become the leader almost immediately, and he's the best of the best.
Yes.
I mean, you could say because he's the tactician of the group.
You could essentially say he's lucky. That's why he's got superpowers. His superpower is being lucky. And
but it does feel like he's the tactician. He sees the goal and works out which is the best way to get there fast.
But there's still that element. Even the books sort of suggest that he's lucky. He makes the correct outcome happen. He might be a very, very good tactician, but even if it was a 20% plan, he's still got the ability to make it 100% because that's just the way that.
Because he's Captain Kirk. Oh, sorry, I mean John Spartan.
John Spartan. Anyway.
So.
Mendes.
I mean, he was sort of like trying to be a father figure.
Yeah.
To him.
But that in itself is an interesting one. I mean, the one line that you said about it's a soldier's or certain commanders. A commander has to know when to spend lives and not to waste lives.
Yeah.
And that's something. Ever since I read that, it's one of those things that has always stuck with me. That as a commanding officer, I'm not particularly, not particularly big supporter of the armed forces, particularly.
Because you consider them all fascists.
No.
But yeah.
My point is that Nylund understood at least a military outlook, and the fact that Mendes is there trying to instill this into John and trying to give him an idea of, look, sometimes things don't go the way you want. That father figure aspect, it was nice to have, even though he has been an absolute bastard to them for pretty much most of their lives. He's been the drill sergeant. He's been the guy that has literally been breaking them down and reforging them as something.
Because I think he's probably the closest relationship John has.
Yes. For him to then drop out the story the way that he does seems like a bit of a missed opportunity.
It feels like some of these segments need to be longer or not exist at all. Like the Lovell part, that could be taken out and just thrown away.
But this is what I mean. Nice. For all intents and purposes.
Yes, it's nice how it fits in with some other things. But it's like, yeah, you could chuck some of this book out and it wouldn't take anything away. Or you could just expand it into like 3 books. All different, not continuation. Or like one focusing just on Halsey, one focus on Keyes, and one focusing on John.
Yeah.
So, and like they're all like Keyes would be more space battles and space opera and stuff like that. Halsey would be more of the like
developmental
and like going to the ethics and be more of a thinking book. And then you've got
John actually being
which
the
is
action,
just the on ground action.
I suppose.
I
don't know. It's whether you would have enough material to flesh that out, because I got to admit, it is a very, very condensed.
I think for some of them you probably would, because like the Halsey bit you could expand it quite easily. Because like you think she's a complete unethical, and I kind of like her. I don't know why. I'm slightly worried now, but I was like, yeah, I kind of like it. Maybe it's because I like Cortana. Ain't that.
Again, I got issues with the whole Cortana having, Cortana having somewhat feelings for John, then suggests that Halsey has had feelings for John. Not that it's ever going to be reciprocated, because John's, like you say, basically a eunuch, and he doesn't know what love is.
Well, that's it. Yeah, for me, it always came across as, if anything, motherly, but also she doesn't come across as motherly at any point. Like, the only parent is Mendes.
Yeah.
Like, Halsey's never playing the mother role or anything. She's not really bothered. She's off working.
But she still come has in occasionally.
But I think that's probably because she went round and met all of them, and that was the one which stood out. But yeah. So overall, you liked it.
I do like it. I do like the book, but I still think that it's going to have limited sticking power for anyone who's not a fan of Halo or is not played the games.
Yeah, like I would say, if you haven't read, if you haven't played Halo, or you haven't actually gone through the cutscenes or something, don't
Do
bother
YouTube
reading this. Like, there's no point.
And there's no point starting it unless you're
Yeah,
wanting to engage in this world, because it's part of a larger world.
yeah, and it does feel like when you've read it, you feel like it's not a full story in on itself. You need to have played Halo, watched the cutscenes, or read the wiki or something. Really get more from it. A satisfying amount of. I mean, it's all right. If you haven't read Halo, I would never read it. And I've played first 3 Halo games. I would probably never read this again.
I can't blame you.
That's just me. Just my tastes. Anyway, thank you for listening to us. Join us next week and we will be reviewing
Rendezvous with Rama.
First Contact.
Curriculum vitae.
Yes, pronunciation is going to be a problem. I don't know. I don't think Halsey says.
Hello, John. You see this shiny, nice quarter? I've got some more on my ship. Would you like to come and see? There's some puppies too.